See, it grows on you, and not everybody likes the music here in New Jersey Revolution Radio, but I know I do, and I can see Laurie's head bobbing.
Well, I played percussion years and years ago, so
that's me too. And I think when I was doing some searching around for this music in our library, I had been listening to a lot of drumline in the recent weeks, as my son participates in marching and band and stuff like that. You will cut out. There we go. All right. We're just tuning in here. Thanks for the couple of viewers we got. Whether you are watching on YouTube, whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on Twitter, I think it's called Periscope. I got some stuff going out on my personal Facebook page. So thanks. Give it a share. We talk with Laurie Endicott-Thomas, author of No More Measles. Awesome book. Could learn a lot about viruses and community health in general. But of course, we're going to talk about the current situation. A lot of information out today from both the state and the federal government. All kinds of things. We're going to cover it in just a second. I'm going to restart the music because I got verification that my sound checked work. We're not going to make you wait any longer. If you're there now, hang tight. Start your watch parties. Let's get going. Here comes a very special, really important New Jersey Revolution Radio Live. Here we go. Hi, everybody. This is Brian Powers. It's Saturday, right? And we're not usually here on a Saturday. We're usually here on a Wednesday at 8 p.m. I'm usually joined by my comrade, Diane Moxley, who we all, like the rest of us, hold up at home, being safe, washing our hands, doing the things out there. But I personally was home today watching a lot of the news, and I was watching the governor's update. And, some new stuff came out, and I'm definitely not an expert on some of the information out there. So I took it in from a public narrative perspective. But I really felt like, hey, over the last, it's been over a year since we've met, Laurie. But over the last couple of weeks, obviously, we've been talking a lot more, given the current things. And this caught my eye, and I'll share it with you. And I sent you this link earlier in our conversation so we could share a little bit of what I'm seeing on there. Oops, it's the wrong one. Because see what happens when you go live quickly. You pull up the wrong screen sometimes. There we go. There's the right one. While I do that, I do want to remind everybody that Laurie is the author of a book called No More Measles, The Truth About Vaccines and Your Health. It is a great book. Laurie, why don't you tell us about that book a little bit while I search for this screen that I lost?
Okay. I got a telephone call one day several years ago from a friend of ours who lived in Texas. And he was frantic because his wife was about to have a baby, and the midwife had told them not to vaccinate their children. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of the people who were delivering babies in people's homes do not have real training in medicine or nursing or midwifery. They, some of them up until recently weren't even required to have a high school diploma. So they supposedly learn the trade by apprenticing or something, or some learn at home stuff, but they really didn't have any sort of real healthcare training as healthcare professionals. Wow. So this untrained midwife was telling them not to vaccinate their children, which utterly terrified my friend, because that meant that she had been spreading this anti-vaccination ideology throughout their neighborhood. So that meant that there were going to be a lot of unvaccinated children in the neighborhood, which meant that his baby was at risk for catching whooping cough and dying. So he said, Laurie, please write a book about vaccination to tell people the truth so that they know who's telling the truth and who's lying. So I went after the project with my customary zeal and wrote this big, long book that explains everything you need to know about vaccination, about public health, about how infectious disease happens, how our body tries to defend us against infectious disease, how the doctors can try to prevent and treat it, and how public health officials can try to contain epidemics. Yeah, and also how the FDA evaluates whether a vaccine is safe enough to be put on the market, and how the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention decide whether certain vaccines, which vaccines should be recommended and on what schedule and who should get them, and then how the state governments decide which ones are required in order for people to be allowed to go to public spaces like nursery schools and public schools.
Great read. So we recommend it. This is the site. Thanks for that introduction. So this is the site, and I was kind of hoping it would be updated maybe every 24 hours or so. Because, and I know that when, I first said, hey, Laurie, and I saw this site, I'm not sure if you were aware of it at that time, but your initial reaction was, listen, they haven't tested enough yet. And so,
right.
I think that's true. But they have tested more. But they've only tested people with symptoms. So, is it still your opinion that these numbers are kind of like whatever? Or, in your opinion, can you look at this and, I don't know, extrapolate for those of us that are staying home, worried about how bad it is in our area, maybe where the hotspots are. The reason why I asked this is because I've been, kind of watching reports about South Korea and their expansive and immediate and very well, I guess a little more prepared response, if you want to say. And around that is testing and data and isolating hotspots. So
right.
rather than just having like, hey, look, these numbers are horrifying. First off, to see where we were a couple of days ago and to see these numbers on our screen right now, 108 dead, 8,000 positive tests in this state. You can see on this map here about where they're at. So these are horrifying numbers to begin with. But we have to get past that, and we have to start thinking, okay, block by block, kind of type thing, to cut and isolate. So is my amateur analysis, which I just mansplained to the expert. I understand, but that's, I'm kind of giving you the perspective, I think, of a guy that doesn't have years and years and years of experience. How far off am I in that analysis?
Well, a hotspot is anywhere near anybody who has the disease. And a lot of these people have no symptoms. So this is why they're telling people to stay home, shelter in place. Don't go out unless you absolutely have to. If you do have to go out, stand far away from other people. Because if somebody coughs, they estimate that droplet can fly about 6 feet, roughly 2 meters. That's why in Britain, or in Europe, they're saying 2 meters. Here we say 6 feet because people don't know what a meter is. And so the disease is being spread mainly by airborne droplets. Now, to get the understanding of what a droplet is versus an aerosol, it has everything to do with the size of the particle. So when you cough, you produce this big cloud of droplets. When you just breathe, you produce smaller droplets, much smaller droplets that can carry the bacteria, or can carry viruses and bacteria. But those smaller droplets are small enough to be considered aerosols. So an aerosol, something that's spread by aerosols, is much more easily spread than something that's spread only by droplets. So far, it seems to be that it's mainly a droplet spread. That's why they're saying at least 6 feet. Don't rule out the possibility that an aerosol can get you. So if you can just stay home, that would be the best thing. Stay home. And if you have to go out, stay away from other people. Don't touch your face, because in order for this thing to, yeah.
I'm sitting right here. We all touch our face. Like, oh my God, we touch our faces so much, Laurie. And I'm sitting here watching you and listen, trying to set an example for the world. People, don't do what I do. I hope you're listening on podcasting. You don't see me sitting here with my hand on my face. I got to break these habits.
Well, even saw Dr. Fauci do a face palm in a crowd of people, and he was like,
we'll give him a pass on that one.
Yeah. Now, one of my secret abilities, or my secrets to ferreting out the truth, is find the smartest people you can and watch their faces, watch their facial expression, and if they, a lot of times people who are really smart are not going to argue with people they think are stupid, but they will make involuntary facial expressions, surprise, fear, disgust, anger, sadness, when stupid people say stupid things. And if you can see people give one of these negative reactions when somebody is talking, or when you say something and somebody else goes,
I've never seen it.
Well, and to fine tune your ability to do this, I wrote a blog post on my on my not trivial blog, nottrivialbook.com blog, about to tune your ability to do this. Watch the BBC version of The Office, and watch what people say and don't say, and how they react when David Brent does or says something, because you know that these people are deeply uncomfortable. They disapprove, and they are communicating this disapproval and disagreement and horror at and so forth at what he does, but they're doing it non-verbally. And the thing that's they're cringing. But because, David Brent's problem, he is the nicest narcissist you'd ever hope to meet. He is narcissistic because he's desperately trying to achieve a higher social standing than he deserves. He wants to be respected as a philosopher, but he doesn't. He's not earning that respect. He's falling really short. But he's all he wants is to be liked, and he's failing. But the people around him are just failing. They're just cringing. So when you see somebody like Dr. Fauci rubbing his face in the middle of an epidemic, it's bad. So
yeah, it sounds like a lot of our experiences with narcissism, and I've seen this in smaller scale stuff where people around you just kind of start taking over, and the narcissist just stands in the middle, spinning around, like wondering what their place is because it's not centered on them anymore. And it becomes a little scary because they don't get it. They really truly don't understand what's happening, and they don't know why people aren't paying attention to them all of a sudden. It's because people are dying, Donald, and we don't want to listen to you anymore. We want to get to work. There's actually some people with some ethics around him running the show now, and I think it's been despite of him. I want to bring it back to the testing though. So as we roll out tests, I have I think we all agree that testing and isolating and learning about the really specific nature and starting to continue to get into details both on the science end of how we develop a vaccine and all this, but also on the testing end of how we develop tests and accurately map out, these hots, so to speak, to at least geographical spots where we can make sure that we, maybe put closer testing centers or something. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that right now. But the testing, now I've heard that some tests have been developed. They can detect the virus within maybe a few minutes to a few hours rather than the days that we're at right now for these tests to come back.
Which is in advance.
Yeah. And that's pretty science is fucking cool, man. Like we did this I don't know how long they've been working on this, but clearly it's a rush job. So, but we have this new test. What do you know about these tests? How their efficacy, their accuracy, how they work? Can we get a little bit of details on, and how hard this is going to be able to manufacture? I'm still hearing another week to 2 weeks before this can start deploying at a rate of 50,000 a week, I think, which still sounds to me like way not enough.
Well, my perspective on this, I for a living, I have written clinical trial protocols that were for tests of tests. So normally before you get a diagnostic test that is used in your doctor's practice, that test has to be tested. So it has to be shown that the test has what they call test performance characteristics, that the test actually does what it purports to do. And only after those test performance characteristics are known is the test then approved generally. Is the test approved for use in clinical practice? We don't have time for this now. And I don't know what the test performance characteristics of these new tests are. And the test performance characteristics are things like sensitivity. So the sensitivity of a test is the likelihood that you're going to get a true positive result if you are have the condition. So and if you then there's also the specificity, which is the probability that that the oh, wait a minute, I'm getting it confused now with positive predictive value. Well, anyway, there's what are the chances that a positive test is meaningful? What is the probability that a negative test is meaningful? These are all things that the statisticians have to work out. And so you have that initial problem. So you could theoretically have a problem where somebody gets a test, it comes back negative, but that just meant that they were just infected too recently to get a positive result. So just because somebody has a negative test result doesn't mean you're free and clear, because they could have gotten an infectious dose 15 minutes before they took the test. So that doesn't mean that they're free and clear. I think that if you have a positive test result, it's probably pretty accurate, because there are other coronaviruses out there, but I think they're using polymerase chain reaction or something like that. So the probability that you would get a false positive from some different coronavirus is probably low. And I'm saying probably because I don't know. So the fact that there is coronavirus and it's going around is really all you need to know. From a consumer perspective. So stay home, if you avoid going out, and if you do have to go out, stay clear of other people, wash your hands frequently, don't touch your face, and when you get home, take a shower.
There you go.
And wash your clothes.
Important stuff. I heard some good psychological advice that I think communicated to my head well, because I'm watching like my own process and how long it took me to get through my own thick skull, that this was what it was, and I even personally, I think, didn't get it, for quite too long, to be honest with you. And now that I feel like, because of, what I do here at New Jersey Revolution Radio, talking to you and watching the media so much, I've been communicating, but I do, and I've been out and I've seen people, they clearly don't have the message yet. And I heard a good report where they said, look, just think about it like you have corona and everybody else has corona, and just act like that paranoid for a little while, until we get further instructions.
Yeah.
And the wash your hands and your clothes and all that stuff has been out there, but also when you do it. So like, I've got a household with 7 people in it. We're being as safe as we can in the house. We are washing our hands. We are watching, like I said, I have the hand sanitizer right here next to me, and I'll wash my hands before I go up and interact with my family again, because I coughed into my hands and whatever, but also when we come in and out, I think that's like the key of what a quarantine really is. I'm even concerned with people bringing groceries home to the store. I know the stores seems like they're doing a pretty good job. I haven't ventured into ShopRite. I've kept it to my local grocery store, which may be worse, I think maybe. But I just go out. I mean, I'm like, I wash my hands before I go. I wear a mask. I bring it home. I wipe down the products before I bring them in the house. I set up a little quarantine area outside. Are there more details like that maybe is not being communicated? Is what I'm doing too much, or is that what I should be doing?
Well, there was a video that went viral about a doctor showing you supposedly how to sanitize things, and a food scientist said, no, don't do those things. Don't wash your vegetables with soap or you're going to get diarrhea.
No, I wasn't. I bought some bread and I bought some macaroni and cheese and some canned goods, and before I brought them, and normally you just bring it in the house, throw it on the kitchen table, throw it on the shelf, and
right.
Well, in my house it doesn't even get that far. With 5 kids, I generally just put it on the table and they forage through it until it's gone. But
it's a horde of locusts.
Essentially, yeah. But now we're not doing it. I'm going around the back. I'm putting it on the table, and I grabbed some just like this non-bleach Lysol germ killing stuff. I don't know what it is, and I lightly spray it down, a rag down, and I just give it a very light wipe, like the packaging and stuff like that.
Yeah, sounds reasonable to me. I mean, you also, if it's a non-perishable good like a canned good or a box of cereal or something like that, if you just let it sit for a week before you open it. I would imagine, I mean, take advice from the CDC on this. Don't take it from me, but again, this is something generally spread by airborne droplets.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it would last on cardboard or whatever.
I've seen some data, but I don't want to say that it's reliable, so I'm not going to put it out there.
Yeah.
Source checks.
I don't know. Get your advice on this. Go to the CDC website and get your advice from the Centers for Disease Control. They're the experts. I'm not the expert. I'm more of a historian than I can explain things. That's what I do.
I think that's what I'm looking for here, because with the public messaging that is out there, Governor Murphy, I watched the press conference. I don't know if you saw it. It's about an hour long today. He's given daily press conferences. I think that's good. Seeing a difference in the way this governor and other idiots conduct themselves, both in public and in preparedness. His messaging is good. And he started off with, "We're not fucking around" kind of messaging. Talked about a party that they broke up. There's a community in Lakewood which seemingly just can't stop having weddings for some fucking reason. I don't get it. Ewing Township, they busted up a club, like a house party. And these people are being prosecuted. And he even started off by saying he got authoritarian with it, but hey, man, this is the kind of times we're in. And he was like, "Listen, if you're doing this stuff, we're not only gonna arrest you and charge you, but we're gonna publicly shame you." And while I'm not a fan of authoritarian regimes, now is not the time to be having a fucking wedding. Just Jesus Christ, hang on, man. Just hang on. Wait until it's safe, whether it be a house party, a family. My family, look, it sucks. I miss hugging my mom. I love her very much. But I want to hug her again. I want to come back in a couple of months and hug my mom again. So let's chill out and do our video meetings and have our online drink parties and things like that. We're adapting pretty quickly, I think, given the technology, to this social isolation. And this, me and you talking right now is an example of that. This isn't a professional media operation. I got a little bit of a fancy looking soundboard here, thanks to our donors. But look, it's really, we've all been there. I think most of the world almost now, if you're connected, or you can be, if you have the privilege of being able to get connected to the internet, which is a lot of people, which is billions of people now. We learned pretty fast how to do that and how to maintain those very important and very healthy social bonds that we have as human beings.
Well, in that context, I mean, you mentioned something about authoritarian regimes and so forth. In that context, I think it's interesting to
Dear Leader Murphy, I have his back on this one. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. And I'd like, if we can, devote a couple of minutes to talking about the definition of classical anarchism.
Sure.
Classical anarchism is more of it's like skepticism, in that it's an attitude more than anything else. And the idea behind classical anarchism is that you're very skeptical of the use of authority of any kind, and that you don't feel that any system of authority is self-justifying. So you don't have this, compare that with the medieval Christian concept that kings rule by divine right. And it's you've got this religion-based system in which this person has the right to rule over you. Well, who made you king type of deal. And that was, classical anarchism is a rejection of that, saying that authority structures can be acceptable, and the use of power within, the exercise of power within, of physical power, of physical force and coercion, can be acceptable, but it's not self-justifying. It has to be justified by some other thing. So if you have a situation where you need somebody to, the police power of the state is the legal term for it. If you need somebody to enforce a quarantine to prevent the spread of a contagious deadly disease, that is the classical justification for the use of police power. So we're in that situation right now. So that in that context, the idea is that power being used effectively for public health, but also as reasonably and humanely as possible. So, it's on one hand, we need to minimize death and death and suffering and disability, but also we don't want people to go overboard with the enforcement. I mean, the enforcement has to be reasonable.
I think look, this is based on science, and this is, we've had so much discussion about why it's important to stay away from people and all this stuff. And the more we do it, and the more we understand that this is about keeping ourselves and our society safe, and that we just all have to do it. And for the most part, people like myself who can stay home should just be staying home. And it's a little hard. There's definitely things. Try living in a small house with 7 people, or try living alone, or somebody who's just been thrown into a world where they're either not working or they still have to go to work and then come home to a family. These are very uncertain and scary things to have to go through. But we all have to be very, very mindful that it's very important what our individual actions mean. And so to hear these directives coming out now, on the other side of the coin, while I give praise to dear Leader Murphy for his sternness and quite frankly his little bit, listen, this is it, I'm the boss, do what I say. We have on the other hand our federal government response. And while, again, I think it's a symptom of, people around Donald Trump saying we're going to take the ship over and, just keep the captain drunk, basically, I think is maybe a good strategy right now. And I think it's being employed. I think if you were, and this is just what I'm discerning from press conferences and, like you said, doing a little bit of body reading, Dr. Fauci's face rub, definitely, we all saw that and we all kind of understood, and I think that's just a lot. Like, if you're in a meeting right now, I think there's a lot of people with Donald Trump in the middle of people. He's running his stupid mouth, and they're on their cell phones, and they're taking notes, and they're talking to people outside of that room, and they're managing the government the best they can, and they're just placating a fool in the middle of it. And I will say to those people, thank you. Thank you. Jesus Christ, don't pay attention to that idiot. Don't listen to a word he says. Don't follow his orders, legal or not. Do what scientists and doctors and everybody else tells you to do. Could disrespect the president. He's a fucking idiot. And I don't want to die because our country's so stupid. I know I'm not the brightest guy in the whole world, but collectively, don't take me down with this shit, man.
Well, our society has been really sick. It has been suffering from a malady for quite some time. And it's the malady of incivility. People not knowing how to have reasonable conversations, and our political discourse is getting nastier and nastier and nastier. There's an organization called the Institute for Civility in Government, and I went to one of their meetings down in Washington, D.C., and there were retired members of Congress that were at this meeting and so forth, and they were saying it's bad and it's getting worse. Or, this was a few years ago. That people don't know how to have reasonable conversation. People in different parties, it's this polarization, this us versus them kind of stuff, and it was getting really, really bad. Well, this pandemic represents an opportunity for us to really rethink our polarization and to rethink the sides that we've been taking. So, a lot of people, they want to take a side, and this is one of the things I'm talking about in this book that I'm currently writing called The Game of Politics, that a lot of people have this dichotomous view. They divide everything up into us and them, good and bad, up and down, left and right, and darkness and light. And it's just two ironclad categories, Republican and Democrat, conservative versus liberal, whatever, and they will jump into one of those categories and then just hate the other category. And this is childish. This is the way toddlers think. And when adults think this way, it's called dichotomous thinking, and it's a symptom of major mental illnesses. So it's it's really not something. It's not really a way that adults should be interacting with each other or dealing with reality. So this is an opportunity to say, well, look, these people that we thought were our heroes because they're the hero of this movement or that movement, just see how accurately their predictions are playing out. I mean, Donald Trump said, well, we had 15 cases and in another 2 weeks we're going to have 0. No, it went up exponentially, just the way that,
nothing according to anything in common sense or logic or science says that could be accurate.
Well, exactly. So you look at now we've got the internet. You look at what people said. Look at what people said 2 weeks ago, and then fast forward. I mean, look at the documented evidence of what they said 2 weeks ago and see how it panned out. Yeah. And look at the people who were right all along, and trust them in future. It's.
I think one group of people was politicians and the other group of people was scientists and doctors. And I'm watching even New York health department officials. Bill de Blasio, not just 3 weeks ago, was saying, get on the subway and hang out at parades. I mean, yeah, it was, I'm sorry, not 3 weeks ago. What is it? So we're looking at March, about 6 weeks ago. I'm sorry. So let me say, these were health department. These were politicians, by the way. They weren't doctors. And I think the doctors in China, the doctors clearly in South Korea had a better grip on it. But I don't think any human being was prepared for this. I'm going to be completely fair with everybody who's flawed right now, and not because I personally didn't take it seriously at first. I don't think anybody saw the first report and said, oh my God, we're going to be seeing predictions of hundreds of thousands dead in a few weeks. I think that kind of level of human casualty doesn't set in very easy. It's not something you experience on a personal level. It's not something America has been through since the Spanish flu or the Civil War or the World War II was not fought on this soil. Most of our wars and massive casualty and death and destruction has been waged outside our borders, and we are experiencing now what I described the other night on my show and what I think is a slow motion nuclear bomb. There's really nothing we can do to stop it completely other than these precautions. But it's from a political angle, and we really, it sounded like we're kind of stealing Heather Warburton's thunder a little bit. She got a new show with Jeremy Einbinder where they talk. I don't know, do they have a title for it yet? I don't know if Heather's watching. She needs to comment and do a plug on the thread, but they talk a lot of communist theory and different kinds of anti-capitalist theory. It's great. Jeremy Einbinder, by the way, Laurie, you two should definitely have a conference because really intelligent people love talking about theory and very academic conversation, which I enjoy a lot. Jeremy's a hero of mine. I'm a big fan of his. But there's the communist and Marxist principle that says human nature can be molded. You hear a lot on capitalists and other philosophies say, this is the way it is. Men like women. There's two genders. It's it. This is how it is, and you can't change that thought. You can't change the way people think. And Marxists don't subscribe to that idea. We subscribe to the idea that things change societies. Things change thought. Large events like what we are in the midst of, or actually what we're not even in the midst of yet, to be quite honest with you, we are about to be in the midst of a large scale event where we lose a lot of human beings. This is going to change us. This is going to mold society, right? And I guess it's up to us to get through the immediate crisis. But if we want to take this wider, long-term view, it's important that we stay somewhat positive and that we focus on the decisions that are being made around healthcare, policy, viruses, and science and education and stuff. Because at this level, I think all those things are going to get touched. All these Varnas, as you described them before, are going to get touched. I don't know. I like to think of myself as somewhat of a tea leaf reader, and I like to make political predictions just like anybody else. My crystal ball is broke right now, Laurie. I don't want to make predictions. It's just, there's too much to process.
Well, I've been saying for quite some time that we went through this period of extraordinary stability. And for example, my father was born in 1929, which was the year the stock market crashed. And then, by the time he became of working age, we were in this extended, his whole career working was in this extended period of amazing economic stability. So, I mean, both my parents, I mean, their working lives were all during this time of extraordinary economic stability by historical standards. Before that period, we'd had huge business collapses every few years. I mean, the Panic of '93 and, so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So, 1893. So, then, we're getting into that, those periods of, periodic collapse again. There was one in the '90s because of the currency problems and so forth in the Far East. And then we had a recession that was in the wake of 9/11, and then we had the Great Recession after the bubble with all of the the real estate and all of those, that bubble in the United States. So we're getting back into this period of these periodic collapses and so forth. But the people who grew up and lived their lives during this period of extraordinary stability, they were very happy to maintain the status quo. And, they had certain kinds of, conservative ideas, conservative small c, that the way things are should be preserved. But the young kids are coming up now, they don't feel that way. They don't go to church in the same kind of numbers. I mean, they don't have the kind of connection to their churches that their parents did at that age. The idea that, well, you can always, if all else fails, you can go down and get a job at the mill. The mill is now in China.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be that college was very inexpensive. That's no longer the case. So, the young people are much, much more progressive than their parents had been. They're much more dissatisfied with the way things are, and they're looking for a change. Now, the question is, are people going to give them, a positive change? Are we going to be able to shape this to really improve society, or is it just, going to end up with really serious problems? That's the question that needs to be resolved.
Yeah, definitely. There's still a lot going on. I mean, we never touch on everything we want to touch on, Laurie. But I do want to remind people that, while you're home, you can definitely check out Laurie's book on commieson.com, the New Jersey Revolution Radio online store. We have been going through some major changes at New Jersey Revolution Radio after the over the last couple of months, since really the start of the year. We told people that we were going to do things big and improve our look and feel and reach and audience and try to get the message out to new people. And you can see our new website right here, Art and Activism for New Jersey, www.njrevolutionradio.com. You see up at the top right here, Shop Commies On. All right. If you saw the old website, I always thought that you can even see the background here right now. We're not done uploading all our new graphics everywhere, but you're definitely going to see more and more roll out over the next few weeks and months and years, as long as we keep some contributions going. Laurie was really, really nice to donate this downloadable PDF to New Jersey Revolution Radio so that you can get it and support 100% of the proceeds go to New Jersey Revolution Radio. They help fund this operation. They help keep maintaining this website, grow it out. And we also want to make sure we serve more artists, more authors, more educators, more podcasters, video producers, activists, all that stuff. These are all the kinds of people that are involved in New Jersey Revolution Radio. At this point, we have been doing a live show every week, at least here for well over a year. Wine, Women, and Revolution every 2 weeks for over a year, maybe closer to 2 years. I don't know. We've met new people every one of those shows. We've made new contacts. We've learned together. We're growing together. We keep getting bigger, and despite these hard economic times, your Trump check is coming. Maybe consider $4 of those dollars to get Laurie's book, maybe a few more of those dollars as a donation, or you can buy an ad on New Jersey Revolution Radio, or a little scroll down on the bottom. $10. We'll put your message up there. Say hi to your mom. Tell people to wash their hands. Do whatever you want to do. Laurie, before I sign off, thank you so much for all your hard work, all your research, your years and years of learning. I think has been a benefit to a lot of people that have been watching these streams, and you're doing your best every time I call you. You're right on the phone to make sure that you can communicate. So thank you very much. Do you have anything to add before we get out here tonight?
They talk about social distancing. What we need is corporeal distancing. Keep your body away from other people's bodies. But we need spiritual closeness. So, call your friends, call your relatives, keep in touch with them, make sure they're fine. Keep in touch with your friends and spread the love, but not the virus.
Oh, I love it. Some great word. You're gonna have to. What was that word again?
Corporeal.
Corporeal.
Every science fiction person out there is going to know what I mean. Because if you're incorporeal, it means you have no body.
Corporeal. All those people, but nobody else. Laurie Endicott-Thomas is going to teach the world what corporeal means. Keep us all safe. We'll be back next Wednesday, 8 p.m. We're going to have a show, New Jersey Revolution Radio Live. We're going to talk about incarceration. We're going to talk about immigrants' rights and all these detainees. Some people are being let out, but we want to talk about our incarcerated comrades right now and the danger that they're in this really, really important environment. But until then, maybe we'll pop in with more special reports. Maybe we'll see you Wednesday night. I'm not sure. Keep on our Facebook pages and all our social media feeds. We'll let you know. Until that time, this is Brian Powers, and I want to remind all of you, police can quit their jobs. Have a good night.